For that role, I guess, spiritual sovereigns, spiritual masters like Bhushan and Sureshwarji, they can come and they can play a role. They can define this idea of VasudhaivaKutumbakam. They can provide the right context and they can explain the nuances.
G20 में वासुदेव कुटुंबकम आ चुका है और अब हम इसके ऊपर एक विश्वास के साथ चर्चा कर सकते हैं.
United Nations has spectacularly failed us.
We need to decolonize our thought processes.
The concept which the Honorable Prime Minister has also put in place and India has to offer to the world is VasudhaivaKutumbakam.
All policies that have to be adopted for the next world order from the Shastras, from the traditions.
This balance between spiritualism and geopolitics is very essential.
A spiritual sovereign, some of his ideas pertaining to technology or pertaining to the Middle Eastern crisis, they are absolutely enlightening.
Indian family system is being looked at as a model for the world to look after itself in these troubled times.
How can startups play a role in propagating a VasudhaivaKutumbakam?
આપણને એક અવસર મળ્યો છે અહીંયા ભારતને વિશ્વગુરુ બનાવવા માટેનો.
If the world has to listen to India, India has to be strong.
This conclave actually tells us the concept of VasudhaivaKutumbakam and how we need to move forward.
From a VasudhaivaKutumbakam Ki Oar point of view, spiritual sovereign Jainacharya Bhushan Suriji and spiritual leaders like him, how do you think that they sort of, position themselves in such a...
Once again, yeah, it's a very interesting question because see, it's a philosophical, it's a concept which is very adhyatmic in nature, primarily an adhyatmic concept, it's a spiritual concept, as I mentioned, discussed, between Raja Janak and his disciple Shukdev. So if you want to use it for IR, international relations or international security, first the question arises, who is going to explain it? Because most of your academic experts right now, they are trained in academic sciences, they are trained in international relations, international security, but they are not trained in this idea of VasudhaivaKutumbakam. They are not trained in the spiritual part of it. So first one needs to explain this. So for that role, I guess, spiritual sovereigns, spiritual masters like Bhushan and Sureshwarji, they can come and they can play a role. They can define this idea of VasudhaivaKutumbakam. They can provide the right context and they can explain the nuances. So I guess, that's where they are required.
What are the current projects that Usanas Foundation as a think tank is working on currently?
So we work on a lot of projects. Our main focus is international security and foreign policy. So we organize Maharana Pratap annual geopolitics dialogue every year. That's in partnership with the Ministry of External Affairs. Besides that, we also organize one scholars program which we just held, and we also read the message given by Sahibji in that scholars program. That was an excellent event, in which we tried to discuss various aspects like what is the structure of the Chinese Communist Party, Chinese intelligence and influence operations, the role of artificial intelligence and technology in the new age warfare like drone warfare and all that. So strategic thought, particularly the Chinese strategic thought and the Indian strategic thought, also the Western strategic thought. So these were the different areas which we tried to cover in that, and we tried to provide a platform to the young thinkers and scholars. So most of the think tanks in India, they are, they generally, they have people who are mostly those who have served in the government, but then we are located outside Delhi, so we have fresh voices, young voices, and we also have a new take. So most of the think tanks in the foreign world, they normally people think that they will either be the left or the right, or they will have some political ideology. We want to puncture that notion. In the typical, like in our Indian legacy, in Indian wisdom, we don't have to strictly abide by these ideologies. We have a very realistic and a sensible framework of looking at things. So that's what we try to promote, basically the national interest, and definitely an enlightened national interest. Okay. So that's what we do at Usanas Foundation. Yeah.
So any specific project also aligning with VasudhaivaKutumbakam at this point?
Yes, I wouldn't say a specific project because we are still a small organization, but yes, we regularly publish articles, and on international security and foreign policy related issues which have VasudhaivaKutumbakam as the guiding philosophy. Like I wrote this one piece, VasudhaivaKutumbakam, a new theoretical framework to make sense of the world order. So I guess that's the first write-up, actually defining the specifics, how it can be a new tool, a new theoretical framework to understand international relations. Okay. That's the first article in that. Okay. So that's what we try to do. Yeah.
The Maharana Pratap geopolitical annual meet that you did, I think even over there, the first point today that Guruji mentioned with regards to sovereignty,
yes,
I think he did mention that over there.
He sent a message and we read that out,
Right.
because for Maharana Pratap's entire life, this whole concept of sovereignty was very dear to him, and that was the reason which made him fight against the Mughal might for decades, and finally he had to hide in the jungles, collect his army and wage a long drawn struggle and battle fight against the Mughals. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your thoughts.